Radiant Black, issue number 28.5. So I just did a video review that's up on the channel that deals with Radiant Black issue number 28. That's Marshall's story. So now we're doing issue 28.5, which is Nathan's story. And I mentioned this in the previous video, but in case you didn't watch that, in case you're not keeping up at Radiant Black, there's two separate timelines. There's one where Marshall is the Radiant Black, and then there's one where Nathan is the Radiant Black. And this issue covers Nathan being the Radiant Black. So in Nathan's story, it's somewhat similar to Marshall's in the sense that Catalyst is forcing Nathan to undergo these tests. But it's different in the sense that in Marshall's story, Nathan ends up getting kidnapped and he gets killed before Marshall can save him. While in this story, Marshall is the one that gets kidnapped, but Nathan, with the help of Satomi, Radiant Red, is able to save Marshall before Catalyst kills him. So in Marshall's timeline, Nathan is dead, Marshall's alive. In Nathan's timeline, both Marshall and Nathan are still alive. Nathan's timeline, we see 001, aka Core, aka the guy who I've referred to as the saber-wielding dude. He shows up on the Catalyst ship, and he's talking to, I don't know if they're like arrested or, because it looks like they're in a prison cell, but he's talking to one of the aliens. I'm not going to go too much into that though. Instead, we're going to focus on the Radiants. Right now, we have Satomi, Radiant Red. She's talking to Kieran. Kieran is the owner, or I guess not the owner, but he's the main dude in charge of the post office, which I'm guessing is going to be a front because, yeah, the fact that the post office has like all these military weapons and equipment and soldiers and stuff feels a little bit weird. But he's a guy that's been kind of like helping the Radiants in terms of fighting against the Catalyst. And right now, Marshall and Nathan are like on the run. They've gone into hiding. Karen is trying to find them. Karen is like, we need to get Nathan under control. And Satomi, I need you to do that. I need you to get him under control, get him to work with us by any means necessary. If you do that, then I will consider your sentence commuted. So Satomi is like in prison for stealing, like bank robbing. So he's basically going to wipe out her charges if she does this. And she basically just straight up tells him, like, you know, I can get out of prison whenever I want to, right? Like, I have my powers. Even though I'm in prison, my powers don't just disappear. I can leave whenever I want to. And so Kieran's like, all right, if you don't want to play ball, then we'll do things differently. Nathan and Marshall go to Nathan's father to get like a car to basically help them get away. So they're going into hiding. And as they're hiding, we just see like in the background, we see the post office is attacking the ship with their guns and stuff. It's kind of funny because in Marshall's story, the post office is telling Marshall, like, hey, stop attacking the ship. Like, our weapons aren't able to do that. Like, we got to figure out some other way to stop them. Whereas in this timeline, they're just blasting the ship with everything that they got. I don't know. I just thought that kind of difference was a little bit humorous. But eventually they arrive at the city where there's this glowing orb that appears. And in Marshall's timeline, Marshall absorbs some of the orb, and eventually he takes it and he chucks it at the ship, realizes it's doing damage, and so he starts collecting all these orbs and starts chucking them all at the ship and at enemies and stuff like that. Here, Nathan sees the orb. He starts absorbing some of it when he gets attacked by Shift. And yeah, the one thing I like about Marshall's storyline, other than Marshall being the Radiant, is the fact that there's no Shift, at least showing up yet. I hate this character. I hate him so much. It feels like they're really trying to shove this character in. Like they're trying to make him like the Green Ranger, only he's not good yet. He's still like at odds with the Radiants. But he's just not as likable as Tommy was. Like there's nothing really redeeming about this character. But they keep trying to shove him into every massive verse. Like he's appeared in Radiant Black. He's appeared in Radiant Red. He's appeared in The Dead Lucky. It's just, they keep trying to make him a thing, and he's just not a thing. He's just not going to work, but whatever. He's apparently working for the government now. He was in prison, but I guess now he has time off for good behavior. And he's trying to stop Nathan from absorbing this orb because the government wants the orb to study it. So yeah, Shift is now a government dude. I don't know why the government would think it'd be a good idea to let Shift on the run, since he's like a weapon arms dealer. He literally was not only a villain at first, but then he became someone who stole a bunch of catalyst weapons and started selling it on the black market to like any nation that had money. So like this isn't a really trustworthy guy. But I guess this is the other plan that Kieran decided, like, hey, if I can't get the Radiance under control, I guess I'm going to use Shift. Shift tries to stop Nathan, but Marshall runs him over with the car. And then they discover that there's this one dude who seems to have a bunch of knowledge on the orb. And it's just some random user on Reddit. And I'm just thinking, really, Reddit? Reddit is the one with the smart dude? I mean, you have 4chan right there. 4chan's nickname is Weaponized Autism. They're the ones that like can track down where a flag is just based off of the wind and nearby birds. So yeah, but I guess don't want to promote 4chan. So they're using Reddit, and I'm like, Reddit's Reddit's not where you go to for intelligence. Let me just say that. Yeah, apparently there's some smart dude on Reddit who knows about these orbs, or at least has these theories. So Marshall and Nathan go over to him, and he basically talks about like their quasars, and he does like some scientific dump on us. Basically, using calculations, he's able to guess where the next one is going to appear, and it turns out that he's right. So what they decide to do is we're going to absorb these orbs, because if we don't, they might get bigger and bigger until eventually they like start destroying parts of the city. That's what happened in Marshall's run. So Nathan absorbs this, but more are appearing, and it's way more than Nathan can handle on his own. So Marshall decides, okay, I'm going to call up the other Radiants for help. Satomi and Ava, Radiant Red and Radiant Pink, they start showing up, and they're helping deal with the orbs. Eventually, Ava is trying to deal with one of her orbs when Shift arrives and attacks her. And so she's too busy focused on taking on Shift that she's not able to finish absorbing her orb. Nathan is in the middle of absorbing one of his, so Satomi has to show up and take care of that. But she, I guess, is not able to get there in time. I think it's because she doesn't have directions. So Nathan's father ends up giving her a ride. When you would think it would be just quicker if you just said, hey, here's where it's at, and then Satomi can just fly there. Because flying there would be a lot faster than driving there in a car. But whatever. Nathan's dad takes her for a ride to the orb. She absorbs the orb. It gets like really, really huge, but she's able to absorb it before it destroys the city. Everyone's like excited. Nathan's celebrating. And then it turns out that she wasn't able to absorb the orb fast enough. And Nathan's father ended up getting killed by the orb. And that's how it ends. And the funny thing is, I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, wait. Are you saying that as Satomi is absorbing this orb, Nathan's dad is just chilling there in the car? He doesn't have the bright idea of, hey, Satomi is here. She's absorbing the orb. Maybe I should reverse and just get out of the blast zone. Instead, he just stands there like an idiot in his car. And yeah, he gets taken in by the orb and killed. And this is what I was mentioning when I was talking about Marshall's run. I mentioned that all the faults, all the things that are going down, they're all Marshall's. Like, he's the problem. In Marshall's run, his emotions get the better of him, and he ends up destroying a city and getting a bunch of innocent people killed and failing the trials. Whereas here, Marshall is smart enough to contact the other Radiants for help, and all the outside obstacles for Nathan have nothing to do with him himself. The very first time he comes across the orb is Shift that gets in the way. Later on, it's Shift stopping Ava from being able to finish collecting the rest of the orb. So Satomi has to finish the job, and she does so, but not before his father gets killed. So like all these factors, like all these terrible things that happen to Nathan, none of them are his fault. None of them are because of him. Whereas with Marshall, everything bad that happens is because of Marshall specifically. So that's one of the reasons, like, it feels like Nathan feels like the writer Sasuke. For anyone who's familiar with Naruto. Naruto is the main character, but Sasuke is the one that got all the love. you can obviously tell that Kishimoto like just absolutely loved Sasuke and wanted him to be the focal point. And so he gave Sasuke like all the cool designs, all the badass moments, focused a lot of time on him, gave him all the cool moves and abilities, whereas Naruto just kind of had like the scraps. And I'm not saying that Marshall is the main character of this series, because the main character of the series is both Marshall and Nathan. I would say, though, that it feels like Nathan's the one that gets everything and Marshall's the one getting the scraps. In the sense that it feels like more is going on in Nathan's story. In Nathan's issue, more things are happening, more people are involved. Whereas with Marshall, it's basically just kind of cliche, and it's just the one thing. It's just Marshall loses Nathan, goes down the path of destruction, everyone ends up dying. Whereas here, it's, oh, Nathan and Marshall are on the run. Saitomi is trying to, well, at first she's being asked to spy on him and get him into his good graces, but she refuses. They come across the orb. They meet this Redditor. They decide, hey, there's more orbs. We need help. So let's call on Radiant Pink and Radiant Red. Ship shows up. We have fights. We have his father dying. Like, there's way more going on in Nathan's story than what's going on in Marshall's story. So I'm not too big a fan of that, because I like Marshall more. I think he deserves the Radiant superpowers. I find him to be a more interesting character with the superpowers. I find Nathan to be very, very boring. So I don't really like the fact that just reading it, I'm not saying this is the case, but reading it, I get the impression that the writer is putting more focus into Nathan's issues as opposed to Marshall's issues. I may be wrong, but that's how it feels while reading this. That's basically what is going on in the Radiant Black. Marshall is heading down the path of the post-apocalyptic timeline. Nathan succeeds in completing the trials with the help of the other Radiants. Yeah. It's funny how the other Radiants are helping because of Marshall in Nathan's timeline. Like, Marshall's the one that calls them. Well, in Marshall's timeline, Marshall is on his own. None of the Radiants are helping because Marshall refuses to accept any help. So it's kind of weird how we got two different Marshalls. I guess it's because of the fact that Nathan's death like affects him. But even when Nathan was kidnapped, Marshall didn't bother trying to call for help like before his death. So whatever. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Yeah. I want this split timeline to end, but we're going to be getting it for a while. At least I know the next issue is still going to continue the timeline, and I think the issue after that is, I didn't like look up how many issues it's going to be while we're still on this timeline, but we're going to be on this timeline for a while. Timeline split, I should say. I just want them to just converge into one timeline already, so I don't have to be doing these splits. But yeah, there you go. There's Radiant Black, issue number 28.5. That's what's going down in Nathan's timeline. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.